שבוע טוב, a gute Woche. This week is a special week. It's the 18th day of the month of Elul. Tomorrow night starts Chai Elul, the 18th of Elul. And the 18th of Elul is the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov. It's the day the Baal Shem Tov was revealed as the Baal Shem Tov, the day he stopped being a tzaddik nistar and became a tzaddik begiloi, a revealed tzaddik. It's also the day that the Alter Rebbe was born, and the one time in his life that the Alter Rebbe actually saw the Baal Shem Tov. And that I want to tell about. Tomorrow night, Chai Elul. Chai means life, and it's the number 18, the life of the month of Elul. And what is the month of Elul? HaMelech Basada is the month when the king is in the field. When we realize we have this potential that we can approach him. And that's deeper than just the story of the king talking to people. It's a deeper sense of connection, which is the essence of the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov. There was a chassid of the Baal Shem Tov who lived in a far town in the north. His name was Baruch. And his wife, Rivka, they came to the Baal Shem Tov, to Mezibush, to ask for a bracha. They wanted a bracha to have a son, and they came during the month of Elul in preparation for Rosh Hashanah to get a bracha from the Baal Shem Tov. It was on his birthday, on the 18th day of Elul, Chai Elul, that the Baal Shem Tov gave them a bracha. And within a year, they will have a son, exactly a year from that date. It was a young couple, and they remained with the Baal Shem Tov in Mezibush for Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkos. So the Baal Shem Tov repeated his blessing to them, his bracha. Rebbe and Rivka, Baruch's wife, fervently promised that she would consecrate her son to the dissemination of Torah and Hasidus, the way of Hasidus, the way of the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov. Remember that the Baal Shem Tov was told by Mashiach that the condition for Mashiach to come, when he asked him, when would you come, is when his well springs are spread forward, far and wide, when what he learned in his visit to Gan Eden, to the Garden of Eden, is taught and is spread, and when people are able to do the Chudim the way the Baal Shem Tov can do, which is a very, very high concept, but at least we should have the honesty of our hearts and the purity in our service to Hashem. So, 6 months after the visit to Mezibush, Rabbi Baruch came to Mezibush again to inform Baal Shem Tov that his wife was confirmed pregnant, and the Baal Shem Tov gave him a big mazel tov and gave instructions for his wife that he gladly took back home regarding how to raise this child. And again, the 18th of Elul, Chai Elul, that came after that year where he came to announce that his wife is pregnant. In Mezibush, the Baal Shem Tov was elated, was like in a special level, happiness and depth. And he davened from the Amud, he directed the prayers in the shul in Mezibush, and he chanted with such joy. And there was something special. It wasn't just about his own birthday. Something special that day. After davening, he addressed his Chevraya Kadisha, his group of closest followers, and he told them that today, in a Shama Chadash, a new soul is descending to this world, and that will illuminate the world, will be a light into the world by revealing the deep secrets of the Torah, and also will bring forward the well springs of the teachings of Hasidus in a great dedicated way, preparing the world for Bias Mashiach, for the coming of Mashiach. The 25th of Elul that year, which is the day of the creation of the world, the Baal Shem Tov made a big feast, a big Farbrengen in the Shul in Mezibush. And 3 days later on Shabbos, he again gave a discourse, and he was like so special, between happy and this elation, this feeling. And the Baal Shem Tov, the Chevraya Kadisha, the Hasidim saw that the Rebbe, the Baal Shem Tov, wasn't just talking about his own birth at the past, but that something new had happened that year, a special thing. There was the birth of Baruch and Rebbe and Rivka, their first child, called Shneur Zalman, and his bris was taking place that day. And 3 days after that was the 25th, and 3 days after, the Baal Shem Tov gave some speeches connected to the destiny of this new boy. By Yom Kippur that year, the Baruch came again to the Baal Shem Tov. He spent Yom Kippur in Mezibush, and he had been cautious not to tell anyone about the birth of his son. He just came. He had a set of instructions in Baal Shem Tov that he received before leaving his home, and he carefully kept all these instructions exactly as he was told. The following year, Reb Baruch came again to the Baal Shem Tov, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, and the Baal Shem Tov asked him about his son and asked him details about how the baby is doing, and gave him a special warning, admonition to take special care of this child, something very special care of him. After Sukkot, Reb Baruch was ready to leave for home. The Baal Shem Tov again told him to shelter the boy, not to boast about his cleverness, not to repeat the ingenious comments that Shneur Zalman was about to make. So 1 year old, Baal Shem Tov is telling him this. Another year passed, and again Reb Baruch made his annual pilgrimage to Mezibush, and the Baal Shem Tov Baruch reported to the Baal Shem Tov upon returning home from Mezibush after Sukkot. The previous year, his wife had told him that there was a noticeable change in Shneur Zalman. He was 2 years old, right? The speech and vocabulary were already extraordinary. He had improved so much. 2-year-old boy, he was talking like and the boy had an amazing memory. Everything they taught him, he just wouldn't forget, he would know it. The Baal Shem Tov gave Baruch more instructions about the child, and Baruch went back and he asked the Baal Shem Tov for a permission to bring him for the 3rd birthday, for the Abshernis, the first haircut. The Baal Shem Tov agreed, and the next year, by Elul, but then Reb Baruch brought his son Reb Shneur Zalman, 3 years old, and his mother, the boy's mother, and his aunt, the Boraleya. Arriving home, Reb Baruch found that his son made further strides about his absence from home. The little Shneur Zalman could recite the Tehillim by heart. He knew the book of Tehillim. At age 2, going to age 3. As prearranged, Rivka and the Boraleo, the mother and aunt from Rabbi Shneur Zalman, brought him for his 3rd birthday to the Baal Shem Tov. And they gave the Baal Shem Tov the schuz, the merit, to cut off a few locks of his hair, leaving only the side locks, the peyos, as is the custom, and the Baal Shem Tov gave him a bracha. On his way home, back to Liozna, to the town of Liozna, the little boy, Shneur Zalman, asked his mother and kept asking who was that elderly Jew who cut his hair. And the Rebbe told him that was Zaidi, that was your grandfather. And indeed, the long time, he would be known as the grandfather, in a sense, because he was his Rebbe's Rebbe, he was his teacher's teacher. So teaching is like being a father, is a way of connecting to the child. And the Rebbe of Rabbi Shneur Zalman, as he would grow up, would be the Maggid of Mezrich. The Baal Shem Tov did ask that the boy not be brought back, because he was destined to be his successor's chassid, not his own. One generation in between. So was the way things were going to be. And he said he belongs to the one who comes after me, meaning the Mezrich Maggid. Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liozna, Pliadi, is the Alter Rebbe, who was also born on Chai Elul, and he starts a special line of teaching Hasidus, the intellectual Hasidus, Hasidus Chabad, from which comes today, after 7 generations, the Rebbe and the entire movement of Chabad Lubavitch, and this form of disseminating the teachings of Hasidus that has reached virtually every Jewish community in the world, no matter how far, how distant, how isolated. So here is a small story about the birth of the Alter Rebbe in the time of the Baal Shem Tov, being the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov. The two are considered the luminaries, the lights that will guide our way. And what for? The purpose of the Baal Shem Tov is the connection. There's this connection of Hasidim with the Rebbe, of the Jew with God, like the king who is in the field, the king that we can actually access. There is the idea that through the teachings and furtherance of the teachings we will bring Mashiach, and there is a sense of how to do things with the thought and with the feeling and with your soul, and the deep teachings of the secrets of the Torah that are the teachings of Hasidus. All this comes from Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov teaches that everything that happens is the hashgacha pratis, is literally the individual or particular supervision of God. They translate it as the divine providence, but God is supervising everything that happens. The Alter Rebbe would say that everything that happens is godliness, elokus. Everything that happens is elokus, which at first is kind of mind-boggling, because if you go out there and you see things going around in the world, some things seem to be the opposite of godliness. There seem to be injustice and terrible things and things that you say, where is God? How could this be happening? How could this be allowed? And yet everything has a source, a living force coming from God. And we need to understand that when we're going to judge the world and how God is doing things in this world. Of course, understanding this takes a lot of teaching and processing and learning. And well, that's what the learning of Hasidus and the understanding of things goes from the Alter Rebbe on through all the generations until all the way down to us. Since the time of the Rebbe Rashab to Rebbe Mego, Chai Elul is known as a Yontif, and by the Frierdiker Rebbe it was actually publicized. This is the Yontif of Chai Elul. It's a special Hasidic holiday. So it's a Yontev coming just 12 days before Rosh Hashanah, when we are getting ready for the special Yom Hadin, the special day of judgment, that we will do with happiness and with a great sense of connection and understanding how this will touch us so deeply. May we have the guidance and have the discover in ourselves the power to do the things necessary to connect with Hashem, to do His will, to bring what we should bring into this world, to experience the Geula, the redemption. I will close with something I heard on Shabbos, a picture, I'll have to look to post it, of the Rebbe in a bridge in Paris in the days of World War II, right before. And the Rebbe, the story behind the picture, apparently the Rebbe had just given somebody tzedakah. Somebody came and asked the Rebbe for tzedakah, and he said, I'm giving you. And tzedakah, the act of giving tzedakah, is experiencing the Geula, the time of Mashiach. This is the time where Jews were facing annihilation, the Holocaust. The Rebbe talks, this act, one act of tzedakah, righteousness and charity, is experiencing the Geula, the redemption. All this war and persecution, the Holocaust, beyond all of that, this will be over. We'll see what's beyond this. And so is the teaching. And that's really what I would like to close with, the idea for this week. Made a very long video. Shavua Tov, Agut Tevoch, Shana Tova Umetuka, Agut Naziz Zayar.